Put a good person into an evil situation, and that person will become evil. Professor Philip G. Zimbardo wanted to put this theory to the test. The Stanford prison experiment had been a 14-day experiment, but was cut short. I have come across this experiment due to the interest in what human nature truly is. The experiment is a pretty well-known experiment, and you may have heard of it, may have been curious to know how much a person can change in the environment they're put in. So the real question is, does humanity win or evil? My purpose is to inform you about what the experiment was, the guards and prisoners' visitation, and the reality of it all. According to Debunking the Stanford Prison Experiment by T. Le Texter, the Stanford Prison Experiment, a simulation study on the psychology of imprisonment. Were the prison guards sadistic due to their personality or the environment of the prison? Prisoners and guards may behave in a hostile manner due to the rigid power structure of the social environment in prison. The environment made them act that way, not their personality. Roles define your behavior. Zimbardo and his colleagues decided to conduct this experiment in 1973. In the article, The Stanford Prison Experiment, they converted the basement in their Stanford Prison University in the psychology building into a mock prison. 75 applicants were chosen and interviewed. 75 applicants were tested to see if they were mentally healthy. Only 25 of those students were chosen. The most mature and the mentally stable were rewarded to be there. So they would be getting paid during this experiment. They were treated like a real prisoner would be, and then the guards took on the role as guards. So the prisoners were stripped from their individualism and referred as numbers. They wore clothes with only their ID number, and that's how they were known. So in the article, roles define your behavior. Guards and prisoners take on their roles, and guards worked in shifts. And each other guards were on call, told to do whatever was necessary to maintain law and order. So Zimbardo had told the guards to do what they believe would keep the prison in control, but no physical violence was allowed. So they started to assert authority, and then in the beginning of the experiment, the guards harassed the prisoners. The prisoners began to act like they were true criminals and began to take their role very seriously. And then the guards chose to do physical punishment, disregarding what Zimbardo had said. So prisoners were generally dehumanized and given boring tasks, insulted, etc. So they used push-ups as a form of punishment, and then they would make the prisoners clean the toilets with just a toothbrush. They would lock them in a room, and then they were isolated by themselves. And then this took a huge toll mentally on the prisoners. They were affected by it. And then the prisoners wanted, in the source and overview of the experiment, it had shown that the prisoners wanted their independence back, so they rebelled by removing their stockings and barricaded themselves inside their cell. So they had removed their bedding from their bed, and then they put their bed against the cell, and then they were basically inside the cell while the guards were outside, and no one could come in and no one could essentially go out. So the guards called reinforcements, and the guards used a fire extinguisher to defuse the rebellion. They broke into each cell and stripped prisoners naked, and took their beds. And during this time, during the experiment, the prisoners had visitation just like a real prison would. So the guards were afraid that the parents would take their prisoners home to see, like, because of the conditions they were put under. They were treated unfairly, and they were afraid that the parents would be like, okay, this is over, we're taking them home. So they cleaned them up and then they made them presentable. After visitation, a new rumor was spread that prisoners would escape. And then in reality, there was this one prisoner number 819 that had a mental breakdown. Philip, the warden, had brought him back in and told him, "You are not a prisoner and you are an actual person." So he had to bring him back into reality, because the prisoner was labeled as a bad prisoner and he had believed he was truly a criminal. In the end of the experiment, it was supposed to run 14 days, but it only ran 6. The Stanford prison experiment proved that most people are influenced through their position environment. Real prison hasn't changed for the better. Instead, it's gotten worse. Extreme behaviors are powered by extreme environments. So overall, the Stanford prison experiment showed that that behavior is influenced by your environment.